Alright, so let's go ahead and get started here. Basically, all we're going to need to do is get this harness up out of the way enough to get the valve cover free. We'll take this wire off here, undo the coils, the fuel injectors, and that should be it. So let's go ahead and start getting these disconnected. Coolant temp sensor, just push in right there and it'll release. Got our cam sensor here. Let's get that unplugged. Pull up gently here. Go ahead and get our coils disconnected. We'll go ahead and get our fuel injectors disconnected here. See. One more clip over here on the corner. Let's go ahead and undo this one from the intake. Alright, and then as you can see, that there, simple enough, get you all the room you need to get that harness up. So we'll go ahead and get these pulled out here. One more clip on this bracket. Alright, so these will be 8mm bolts. Alright, so we'll get those out and set them off to the side. Then we'll go ahead and pull our coils out. Yeah, a ridiculous amount of oil on these boots. Pouring oil off of it. That's why if you go to do this job for the tune-up or the valve covers or whatever, you see all this oil on these boots, it's a good idea to get new boots for the coils. Alright, so now we're just going to work our way around here. 8mm bolts around the perimeter of this valve cover just to get it off. We'll go ahead and remove this bracket. So there's going to be a 13 back here on the back side. Looks just like this, so we'll go ahead and set it off to the side. And we can work on these other bolts. so once you got it broke free, we can go ahead and just pull up on it. We'll slip it out of here. And we'll end up giving this a real good bath and getting the gasket changed out on it. For now, let's focus our attention on this area here. Alright, so before we go any further here, obviously we're going to need to clean up our entire gasket area here, the perimeter of the top of the cylinder head where the valve cover is going to go on. But in our case, we're going to be replacing the spark plugs and this coolant temp sensor at the same time. So if you can see down in here, there's a ton of oil down in each passage. Spark plug 1, 2, 3, and 4. Coolant temp sensor, we need to suck every bit of that oil out before pulling any of these spark plugs out. If you pull them out, all that oil is going to drain down into the cylinder, and then you really run the risk of potentially hydro-locking this engine when you go to start it. Let's go ahead and get our vacuum pump hooked up, and we'll get this all cleaned out here. Alright, so nothing fancy here, just a little sucker. Alright, so once I've got it all sucked out the first time, that's good, but I like to take some brake cleaner. And again, while the plugs and everything's still hooked up here, you know, they're all still in. I haven't taken any of them out. We'll spray some brake cleaner down here over top of the plugs, down in them spark plug tubes. Because we want to get as much of this oil out as possible. Alright, so get enough brake cleaner in there to where it really dilutes down that oil, and then we'll suck it out again. Alright, and then you can see here we've gotten a pretty good amount of oil and brake cleaner out of here. So I find this to be the best way to do it, to get all this oil out. Plus we'll be changing the oil when we're all finished up here anyhow. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get the gasket surface here cleaned up. We'll need to clean here especially well, and here. That's right where the front timing cover meets the head. If you can see, they use some RTV on there from the factory. We'll clean that off. We'll make sure we put RTV back down when we put our valve cover on. So we'll get the gasket surface cleaned up here, and we'll go ahead and replace this coolant temp sensor and these spark plugs here in just a second. Okay, that's right here. All right, and that'll be clean enough. We don't want to go digging in it with this any, emery cloths, deep scratches, anything like that. You should be able to get mass majority of it off, if not all of it off, with some brake clean and a rag. All right, so we'll go ahead and remove the spark plugs now. So if you ever get a spark plug that feels super tight like that, what we're gonna do is go ahead and tighten it back down. And then we'll try taking it loose again. There we go. All right, so there's one of our plug. Let's go ahead and get the other three out. All right, and there's the last one. All right, and at this point, before we put the new spark plugs in, the only other thing I recommend doing is just shooting a little air down inside each hole. All right, what we got here is Bosch double iridium. I would use the Motorcraft if the parts store had them in stock. They currently do not. So these will work just fine. I generally try to stick with the OEM plug, but these will be just fine for this focus here. All right, we're gonna check our gap real quick and then we'll get these set in. All right, and we'll go get these torqued down here. All right, and that's good there. So let's see. Next, we're going to move on to replacing this coolant temp sensor. We've got our new sensor right here. All right, and then to get this coolant temp sensor out, it's going to be a 3/4 or 19 millimeter socket. Deep well for sure. They're not very tight at all. so there's our coolant temp sensor there. We'll go ahead and take it out. Alright, and we're just going to turn it until it's bottomed out. Just like so. That is plenty tight enough. Alright, so now we're about ready to get the valve cover cleaned up and put it back on. Alright, so we've gave it a good bath here. Got our new seal all installed. Nothing fancy about it, just pull the old one out, put the new one in, make sure it's pressed in all the way. The only thing we're going to make sure we do is right there on this joint and the joint right up here in the front. We're going to put some RTV there before we put this valve cover on. Alright, so we'll just get a little bit on our fingertip. Alright, and then just like that. Same thing here for the front. Alright, so now we'll go and grab our valve cover and we'll slip it back in and we'll start working on getting it tightened down here. There we go. Alright. Alright, we'll go ahead and get these all started by hand here. Alright, then once we've got them all started by hand, we'll go ahead and just run these down gently, working our way from the inside out. Alright, so once we've got it all torqued down here, we're going to work on getting our ignition coil boots switched out real fast, and I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so we'll go ahead and take our first coil here, and what we'll do is just go ahead and take this entire boot and spring out. We're going to get this cleaned up, the actual coil, and I'll show you how to get the new one installed. Alright, so once you got your coil here cleaned up, I like to go ahead and just take our spring, make sure it's in place. You'll feel it connect on the inside of that coil, and then we'll slip our boot directly on over top. And just like so, got brand new wires installed on your coils here. So let's go ahead and do the other three. Alright, now that all our coils together, the only other thing we'll do to them is get some dielectric grease here and just put us a little bit on the tip here just to insulate these coils. Alright, and then they're ready to be installed, so we can go ahead and pop these here into place. One. Two. Three. And four. Alright, and then we'll give those a good push down. We'll get our bolts started in here. Alright, now that all our coils are installed, we can go ahead and work on starting to get this harness back into place. So we'll go ahead and start by getting our fuel injectors clipped back in. Alright, then we'll push our coils in. Before we do the second coil, actually, we'll go ahead and get this coolant temp sensor plugged up. Alright, just like so. Alright, and then we'll get this bracket reinstalled back here. Alright, now that our bracket's back into place there, that's good. So we've got pretty much everything back together here. We need to go ahead and clean this engine up a little bit better. So we're going to get it cleaned up, and we'll start it up and let it run, see how it's doing. Other than that, thanks for watching.